Hello, BookTube. I have another BookTube event roundup, just a general reading roundup video that will probably be the only video that I make today. I'm very sorry about the low yield of number of videos this week. I'm reduced to making pretty much a video a day, which is only 5 times more than the usual BookTuber instead of my usual 15 times more. And I know that's a hardship. I'm a little bit socked with work. I was kind of expecting that I'd start a business today that would alleviate, and it instead increased. Who knew? Who knew that delivering good, readable prose that does not require editing earlier than deadline and doing it in reams and reams, mountains and mountains, who knew that taking a task entirely off the shoulders of an editor? So you've assigned this. We've emailed back and forth. You've seen my CV. You know that I've done the equivalent of your job before many, many times, including many, many times before you were born. You had to test the waters because I'm bitterly old, and you have done that, and you have liked the results, and now you are testing the waters further by seeing if you can simply give me this task, so that of all the things you have on your plate, you now have one fewer. It turns out that if you're the person who can do that, you might get work. So there's going to have to be one more roundup video. I am hoping maybe that tomorrow will be different. I plan on pulling what the kids in my generation used to refer to as an all-nighter. Of course, kids don't mean that anymore because they need 16 hours of sleep out of every 24. But I plan on being a little bit of a freak tonight. I have been a few nights, and it's getting me some headway, so we will see. But in the meantime, I just want to talk about books for a bit. I don't think I have the time to make 5 videos, which ought not to be something that I say with a tone of apology, since, as again, I want to point out, no other booktuber makes 5 videos a day. None. No booktubers do that. 0. And the content farming YouTubers, the political commentary YouTubers or whatnot, who make 5 or 6 videos a day, make one whole video and then have an editing team that chops it up into those videos per day. They've got a script team to write what they're going to say. They've got an editor and a posting team to polish everything and post it, and at certain times in certain ways with certain titles. It's not exactly a heavy burden. Anyway, not that you're a heavy burden. You're not. It's just I don't know that I can justify the time. So we'll just do a roundup. And last night my reading was excellent. I read for a huge chunk of the night. And what are we doing? Oh, God. I no sooner start filming than there is activity. What are you doing? Oh, you're getting some Frida yoga. What are you doing? You going to go over to your chair? You are. There you go. There you go. Right, so I can block this thing. There we go. I did a good amount of reading last night. It was, once again, hijacked. Once again, my reading was somewhat hijacked. It should be entirely devoted to September new releases in the American book market. And it wasn't. It got sidetracked a couple of different ways. One was Virginia Woolf. Because not only one of you sent me a beautiful hardcover of Virginia Woolf, The Writer's Diary, which is just bottomless. I can just go at that book forever. And I also got a volume of the collected essays of Virginia Woolf. I don't have all of those volumes, but I have I think 3 of them now. And that also is bottomless for me. Where this is the volume that I got is the very last one, where the editors at the TLS, the Times Literary Supplement, felt comfortable just handing this writer called Virginia Woolf a few new releases. Well, you're going to come by the office. We'll just fill a basket with stuff that I, the editor, will just fill a basket with stuff that looks like it would be a good match for you, and you can just come by and pick and choose. Or you can come by and look at the stacks of new arrivals, and I'll let you know if there's anything that's bespoken for somebody else. It's not that different a process than what used to happen even 100 years later in newspaper book rooms. where, although newspaper book section editors always like to say this isn't true, there really is a huge advantage to propinquity, to you just being there in person on the premises. I know this for a fact because my being there on the premises gave me free run of one of those book rooms for a major newspaper for 10 years. Solely because I was there and I was presentable and I was nice and I was obviously knowledgeable. So why not, how about you do this? How about you take this over and organize it and weed out the wheat from the chaff and whatnot. That can help a lot, and Virginia Woolf was often in a position to just go by and see what was what, and also she was more and more known to her editors, and the pieces that I'm reading in the volume that I'm reading now, most of them are rereads at this point, but these are the last ones where the editor was thinking, well, we can just do that. We can just fill a basket with some new releases that Mrs. Woolf might want. As opposed to, it's a big deal to have Virginia Woolf writing for the TLS. It's a big deal, and we should treat it that way. Not sure that Virginia Woolf herself ever treated it that way. She had plenty of vanities in her life, but I think she was largely free from that vanity, from that kind of vanity. I could tell you stories about some writers who gained that kind of vanity very early on, and it just went to cartoonish proportions, especially at the New Yorker. I could tell you stories of some writers who carefully polished public persona as nice, humble, ordinary guys who were anything but, when it came to that exact moment, patrolling the book room of their publication. I could tell you stories that would stand thy several hairs on end like quills upon a fretful porpentine. But I don't think Virginia Woolf was ever like that. I think, even when she was a nobody, even when she was not known, she was still writing reviews for the TLS and still taking her sweet time with them. So, but anyway, I fell thereby, by those two volumes, I fell into a kind of trance. I shouldn't have been doing that. I have September releases that need reading and that need in-depth reading. September and early October, I have releases like that I really need to read in depth. Some not so much. I mean, if you get a, I don't want to criticize anybody here. I'm feeling too good for that. But if you get a kind of a make weight, check the boxes, what one person referred to as high school level history volume, if you get a volume like that on, late medieval French king, okay, you're going to read it and you're not going to find any problems with it. It doesn't have any weird abnormalities. Doesn't have any weird blind spots. It might even be the product of legitimate research, but the end result is flat. So you have something like that. It doesn't require, any kind of real depth. It takes me half an hour to know not only the strengths and weaknesses that I need to bring to the attention of a reader, but also what I want to say about it to the reader. It takes about half an hour to realize all of that, point by point, and maybe another 20 minutes to write it. Whereas then on the other side of the spectrum, there are bigger, far more ambitious works that do require more in-depth attention. Like, for instance, there's a gigantic new scholarly annotated edition of the Memoirs of William Tecumseh Sherman. It's not the first annotated memoirs of Sherman, and I guess it won't be the last. I don't know why, but I guess it won't be the last. But a huge amount of work went into that book, so I need to pay extra attention to it. And I should have been doing that last night. But again, I read all day long. Largely, I read all day long. My little dog no longer has... She's being really cute. Let me give you another look at her there. She no longer has an endless desire to be constantly running around outside. She really doesn't. I leave exercise up to her. Or at least I have. Until now, I have left exercise up to her. If you make the request, any dog really, but in this case I have just one dog. If you make the request, well, then my answer is yes. So, barring some sort of weird external circumstance where I'm waiting for somebody at the door or something like that. If you say, I feel like stretching my legs, I feel like going outside, then the answer is yes. And we'll stay outside as long as you want. And I have noticed in 2025, aided and abetted by some health problems, I have noticed that now I don't get that request. anywhere near as much as I once did. I don't know if that's temporary. I don't know if that's going to come back in 2026 maybe, but in 2025, I will get, well, we go outside first thing in the day anyway, whether I get the request or not, because, that's good for you to get the blood pumping. But after that, I've noticed that I will go huge stretches of time where she is perfectly comfortable, curled up either on her chair or directly against me without any need to go out. So I do a huge amount of reading during the day, in addition to the huge amount of reading that I do at night. So I don't feel so bad about having my reading hijacked the way it has been the last few nights. I don't feel so bad about that. The books I am going to get to. They are going to be got to. So Virginia Woolf sidetracked me quite a bit. I also got sidetracked by something else, but it actually touches tangentially on a BookTube event. I got sidetracked by the Dune Encyclopedia. Which I mentioned on a recent Hedgehog book recommendation video. And I know, you want another Hedgehog book recommendation, and you will get them. You will get them. You will get them, and starter kits, and a Bro Watch video, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it can't be... I don't want to make BookTube videos when I am looking over my shoulder at something else. I like to give my total undivided attention to all my bots. And I can't do that if I've got something real in the real world looking over my shoulder. I think it's fair for me to say I am about as disconnected from the real world as anybody on BookTube. So there aren't many of those things. Who knew that I was still gainfully employable? I am gainfully employed all year round, but this is excessive. So I haven't wanted to just blather on, and yet here I am blathering on. But in a recent Hedgehog book recommendation video, I mentioned the Dune Encyclopedia, which Frank Herbert wrote to flesh out the mythology, the background, the history of his Dune books. And it's shaped like an encyclopedia. All the entries are alphabetical. Some of them are short, some of them are very long, pages and pages. And I mentioned during that video that I loved it. I love this book. I also mentioned during that video that I think the paperback of this book is expensive, hard to find, and expensive. I have a copy in the little book room that I used to go to all the time. I don't see myself going to that volume as often now that I have, that I have it on the Kindle. That is so much easier to annotate, pay attention to search for. Searching is important in this book. Names crop up in the fine print of each individual entry in the encyclopedia, and some of those names repeat. If you're geeky enough to want to know, does one historian from one entry turn up as a historical source for another entry? Well, you can ask the device for that. I can't do that on the Dune Encyclopedia paperback that I have. I don't think has an index, and indexes are awkward anyway. You got your one finger here, you got another finger here, you got another finger here. It's ridiculous. The Dark Ages. It's stone knives and bearskins compared to even a primitive thing like this. But anyway, that's the subject for another video. Oh my God, I have not stopped hearing in my emails from all of you about your e-reading experiences. The video has tons of comments, but I'm also getting tons of emails. That's exactly why I leave my email address, so that I can just chat with you all. One of you repeated an observation that you made a year ago. I've mentioned on this channel many times that for a quarter of a century, for 25 years, I worked at a bookstore, a retail bookstore. And I've mentioned many times that I used to helm the information desk from noon to 2 for our lunch rush, where there'd be lines of people. And a million different book questions. What is new in this area? Do you have this particular book? Can you remember this reference? I'm not remembering it. Before the internet, you needed a knowledgeable bookstore information desk or a library to get that sort of stuff. And there was no library branch convenient downtown. So it was me and Deb. But I mentioned that when it wasn't the lunch rush, my alternatives were either to do stupid busy work or to just wander around the store poking my nose in customers' business. And I always chose the latter. I always wandered around the store poking my nose in customers' business. I had so many customers who would laugh and joke when they saw me round the corner of an aisle that they were in, because they would moan and say, "Oh no, he's going to cost us money." Some of you are familiar with the fact that I am still very capable of doing that. But one of you pointed out a year ago when I mentioned something like that you are all my customers now. And someone pointed that out again in the barrage of emails that I've been getting about e-readers and e-books. It's been fascinating. Just fascinating. Uh, uh, but it's been so fascinating that I actually want to make another video. I've done videos before on this channel in praise of e-readers and e-reading, but I should do it again. Like I say all the time, I can't expect anyone to go spelunking through 9,000 videos. I should make another video along those lines. Maybe a nice hour-long thing. Once I have the time. Once the man isn't on my back, dude. But this actually hijacked a part of my reading last night, but not quite. Not to take me completely away from a BookTube event. And the BookTube event, believe it or not, is Shakestember. It's the BookTube event celebrating Shakespeare. Because I started reading this thing. I thought, well, the last 10 times that I've gone to the Dune Encyclopedia paperback that I have been looking for a particular thing. One particular thing. The Spice Agony. Go to S and look up Spice Agony. Or something like that. I decided, well, what about if you just read it? The whole thing. Because it's full of narratives. It's not just dry encyclopedia entries. Several of them. You'll get one that's a dry encyclopedia entry, and then you'll get 10 that are narratives, that are stories. So I started reading it, and boy, oh boy, am I glad I did. I'd completely forgotten the introduction. The introduction is by the Guild of Scholars who have put together the book, the Dune Encyclopedia, in the Dune universe, in Dune continuity. The introduction is not by Frank Herbert. It's the introduction sets the book in a fictional setting. This is essentially the 7th Dune novel. And the scholars at the beginning of the book mention, they're kind of prickly and a little bit stiff and academic, and they mention that they've taken the most rigorous standards imaginable to strain out the myth from the legend and to carefully collate the data for each of these entries. But they also mention that virtually everything in the book called the Dune Encyclopedia comes from the God Emperor, Leto II. That what he chose to preserve for whatever reason, even if he thought it was interesting but false, that is largely in the hordes of information that form the basis of the Dune Encyclopedia, whereas the stuff that he didn't find interesting or found angering, he dismissed, he destroyed. And I thought that was so fascinating, that this whole book is literally in the shadow of the God Emperor of Dune, who ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, shaped all knowledge, did his best to shape all history. So I thought that was fascinating. I thought, okay, well, just start reading at A and see how far you got. And I got very soon in. I got to an entry on a playwright during Leto's long reign. Harkal Arba was his name, and there's an entry about his biography, and his works are annotated and listed and whatnot, and the probable times of composition and their reception and whatnot. And then Herbert, I'd completely forgotten. If I ever noticed it, I've completely forgotten it. He then gives us a long disquisition on the authorship controversy of that playwright. How people just don't believe that a salesman could write these plays. They just don't believe it. And they have all sorts of competing alternate theories and a whole bunch of alternate candidates, including Duke Leto II, including the God Emperor of Dune. And the authors of the Dune Encyclopedia, not Frank Herbert, but the authors of the book called the Dune Encyclopedia, rehearse. They go over each one of those authorship controversy theories and knock each one of them down. And it's all annotated. There are all these works that are mentioned, all these different authors and worlds and editors and whatnot. It was all so good. And boy, Frank Herbert must have been a freak. I mean, who thinks up these things? Who would even care? It has nothing to do with anything. It's not connected with anything to any part of any section of the Dune novels. And yet there it was, the Shakespeare authorship controversy just slapping me in the face. And I don't know about that entry. The scholars of the Dune Encyclopedia wrap up the whole thing by saying exactly what Shakespeare scholars say today, which is that we actually know more about Harkalabra's life than we do about any other writer at the time. We have a lot more facts about his life. The idea that he didn't write the works associated with him is plainly ridiculous. And the author of the entry says, we know more about his life. He is as firmly attested to be the author of his plays as Rabelais, Milton, and a whole bunch of fictional authors, future authors, but no mention of Shakespeare. Anyway, even the Bacon ciphers, the Francis Bacon cipher method of finding out hidden messages in the text, even that is given in that entry. We get sections of the play, and then the cipher is applied. It was utterly fascinating. I am really, really going to enjoy this reread. I've picked the right way to do it. I don't know why it never occurred to me before to just read this as a book. It is presented as a book. It's presented as its own book, its own narrative. It is not an encyclopedia in that you have a committee of researchers doing each entry. It's a group of scholars who have put this all together and drawn it from the Rakis hoard, who've drawn it from the hoarded records of the God Emperor. So it stands to reason there would be a stronger narrative theme throughout than I thought, and I'm going to look forward to that very much so. I can't imagine that other BookTube events are going to be echoed in this, but I was laughing while I was reading that last night. I was laughing while I was reading a giant disquisition on an authorship question that is not Shakespeare. It isn't, and it doesn't slavishly echo Shakespeare either. It's got its own distinct characteristics. I loved it. I just loved it. But anyway, that was one BookTube event. Another BookTube event was Cimmerian September for Michael K. Vaughan. We are dealing with Robert E. Howard and his various creations. There's some great videos. There have been some great videos out there, not just from Mike, but from other people as well, on Cimmerian September. If I remember, I will try to leave a link to some of them down below, because some of them have been great. But I am reading a stack of Savage Sword of Conan from Marvel Comics from the 1980s, when all the world made sense. And I am up to Savage Sword of Conan number 116. New comic book fans, long-time comic book fans, are going to sit up and pay attention right away because of this cover. Because this is a Bill Sienkiewicz cover. And that's kind of notable on its own. The cover doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is unlike the other Sienkiewicz cover, the one that came a little too early for these issues, but that we saw in a letters column. This is him moving into a different phase of his artwork, where he owes nothing to anyone, where he's not trying to imitate Neil Adams or anybody else, where he's moving into the kind of Bill Sienkiewicz that we would be more familiar with from Elektra Assassin, for instance. Still a fairly standard Conan cover, although I don't know about that cod piece. but the story, the cover is by Bill Sienkiewicz, but the story is written by Larry Yakata and illustrated by Ernie Chan. And it's the story about the Brotherhood of the Falcon, which we've seen in an earlier issue of this. It's not really a run, but this batch of Savage Sword of Conan, as a group of people who are dedicated to destroying Conan. They are dedicated to killing him. And this is once again another example of how glad I am that Cimmerian September has made me like Ernie Chan's artwork. It's made me slow down and like his artwork. I think I know where. We'll pause for a commercial interruption. I think I know where my objections to Ernie Chan came from originally years ago. That's the opening there. I actually, of course, prefer the Sienkiewicz cover. I think I know where my original objections to him came from. So often in my comic book reading past, he was brought on to ink artists that I like much more, and I thought did a poor job of it. And then almost invariably in circumstances like that, whether it's Marvel 2-in-1 or whatever, almost invariably he would then take over the artwork. Steve was even less happy. But he is wonderful in this issue. Here we have scene setting detail, but the top is all one panel. Very interesting thing. I never see that in a comic book, where the splash is 1/3 of the page all across the top. That is wonderful. And you no sooner turn the page and you get a magnificent 2-page spread. Just incredible. Oh, the detail there is just incredible. An amount of detail that, frankly, John Buscema might not have done later in his career. He might not have bothered. He might have left it to Ernie Chan or other inkers. But we get the Brotherhood of the Falcon, and they are after Conan, and the issue isn't much more than that. It's a whole bunch of royal talk. Again, saved by the fact that I now appreciate what Ernie Chan does with these panels, as he tells the story, the backstory of the Brotherhood's hatred of Conan, as they set about to destroy him. And there's action in the middle of the issue, and the action is the type that will generate irritated letters from readers. That did 40 years ago. Those readers are probably dead. Because Conan is superhuman, and that ought not to be. You ought to construct your story so that if he's superhuman, he's only barely superhuman, and believably so. But here, ruin falls on Conan, he's just fine, and then he is surrounded like this. Look at that panel. The Brotherhood has caught him. They are 30 feet, 40, 50 feet away, all mounted, and all ready. They're not countering him by surprise. They saw him free himself from the wreckage. So, unless Conan immediately dives back into the wreckage, he's a dead man. But instead, he dodges their arrows, all but one. Well, all but one is nothing. That you are saying nothing there. No one can do this. From this, no one can do this unless you're a superhero. Unless you're, Superman. Not that Superman would need to dodge, but Quicksilver from the Avengers. Or the Flash, I guess. A human can't do this. A human can't even see an arrow in flight, much less dodge one, much less dodge several. All these men are pointed at him directly. He is in crossfire. That is impossible. He'd get a lot more than one arrow, is what I'm saying. But it goes on from there because they keep trying to fight him, and he does something that's even less possible. He takes a sword and stabs a rider of a horse through the heart, through his horse's neck. That is impossible. I don't care if you're Conan, I don't care who you are. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to do. So, you would think that would bother me, and it did a little, but we get these great mystical panels. Again, it's like we saw with Val Merrick, a lot of these panels, a lot of what Ernie Chan does is straight on horizontal. The compositions aren't all that different, but they're done with so much more technical heft that I like them a lot better. I like this thing here as well. Conan is trapped in this room and the ceiling is coming down on him. He uses his sword to carve open a space on the floor and hide underneath it just in time to save himself from the roof caving in. That's not how roof cave-ins work. You can't do that with a sword, and you certainly can't do this with your bare hands. Tunneling through the ground with your bare hands. You certainly can't do that. What on earth? I mean, honestly. I still enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed it. There is a backup feature here, and I enjoyed that a lot less. Conan takes his revenge on all the men who have all the members of the Brotherhood of the Falcon who have wronged him in this particular instance, and once he's got his revenge, he rides off with all their treasure. So it's a standard Conan story that is highlighted, for me anyway, by the silly action sequences. I don't know what letter writers are going to say. I did enjoy the issue. I couldn't help but notice in the letters column of this one that the editor of the letters page might have been in a bad mood, because whoever it is pretty short with the readers. One writes, how much do you pay Joe Jusko? I think he needs a raise. That would be something This issue had women and sword fights, such excitement. I loved it. One thing I'd like to know, why doesn't Conan show any sorrow or emotion when he kills someone? And the response is very short and very simple. Jusko just got a raise, and Conan's not sorry when he kills someone. Period. And it goes on from there. There's more. I thought there was at least one other example. A reader from Flint, Michigan says, "Why are Conan's steeds always getting killed? I'm not complaining. I think it's kind of funny." And the reply is simply, Conan is a dangerous guy. Okay. All right, fine. I don't know which I find more disturbing, the curt answer or the fact that the person from Flint, Michigan is an obvious psychopath. But anyway, that was Cimmerian September. Pretty good issue. I have no idea what's coming next in that stack, but I will get to it tonight, I hope. I hope I'll get some diversions tonight, a moment or two where the nose is off the grindstone. But there was also Shorty September, which I'm trying not to miss. I'm trying to do at least Cimmerian September and Shorty September every day for September. And last night I read a favorite of mine, but a book that I have not read. This thing, The Twilight Seas by Sally Carrigar. She's a great nature writer. This is late in her career. I think this was in the 1960s. 1975. And this book is the story of a blue whale. Sally Carrigar wrote very personalized, but not quite anthropomorphized accounts of animals in various settings, whether it's a small pond in the woods or the Tetons, or in this case, the open ocean, with the largest mammal that has ever lived and in world history. She individualizes a particular female blue whale and takes that blue whale through everything, through youth and then reaching maturity and then calving and then the dangers of the sea, killer whales, for instance, and the pleasures of the sea and the pleasures of motherhood and whatnot. And it was really good. I wasn't a big fan of the artwork. This is not the usual artwork that you see in a Sally Carrigar book. It's not usual at all. It seemed a little bit less energetic to me. I've seen blue whales, and I don't know how many people will read this book. I don't think this book is in print. I don't think it'll ever be back in print. But I wonder how many people, when it was in print, who read it had never seen a blue whale. They are unbelievable. When you see one, especially if you see one up close to the surface of the water, like on a small sailing vessel, they don't seem believable. You're sure, the first time you see one, you're sure your eyes are playing a trick on you. You see the great head, maybe even a great eye. They love to roll a little and look at you. They're pretty curious. You see that, on the port side of your vessel, and you think, that's a mighty big whale. And it's got company because it's got a friend over there. But that's not a friend over there. That's the same animal. All the way over there. It's the same person who's 100 feet long. And this was wonderful. I didn't care for the artwork, but I love the book. We get, for instance, there's a section here on feeling lonely, which I don't think it's anthropomorphic. I don't think it's completely artistic license to assume that other animals get lonely. I don't think that's unusual at all. Our whale has given birth. She has a calf. And this is from a chapter called The Lonely Sea. Anyone wanting to know the events of our planet's history will look first at maps. For all the past is recorded there. Mountains, hills, valleys, lakes. These are the effects of happenings, some taking place over a long time and some instantaneously, as when a sudden break in the Earth's crust lets the molten center surge up in a visible mass. It's a dramatic story, but less than a third of it can be read on maps readily available, for they don't show that some of the most stupendous scenery, therefore evidence of the most stupendous events, is under the oceans. Mountains, miles high, rising out of sinks several miles deep, all unsuspected by most passengers sailing or flying over the seas. But the whales know. They live among those submerged canyons and summits. Except for shorelines, these are the land to whales. One of the most spectacular is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. I know it well. 10,000 miles long and twice as wide as the Andes. It starts up beyond Iceland, swings west in an S-curve beyond Europe and North America, and following through in another curve becomes a lofty, unbroken mountain range halfway between South America and Africa. It can be called awesomely beautiful even though no man has seen it except on the charts compiled by ships plotting the seabed with echolocating sonar. But to the whales it is a wall, not, however, coming so near the surface except here and there that they can't swim over it. Those few places are islands, which were, and even are, volcanoes, erupting along the length of the ridge and lifting its summits above the waves. Coming south from Iceland, the islands are the Azores, St. Peter and St. Paul rocks. Mariners are acutely aware of these. Ascension Island, St. Helena, in a little off to the side, and then she goes on to name more islands. The whale and his mother are swimming toward Bouvet on a route between the mid-Atlantic ridge and Africa. They don't need to see the slopes of the ridge in order to realize that it is there. It was known by lesser buoyancy over the heights, by the westward current that beat upon it in an upward sweep, lifting colder water to the surface, and by a change in the water's taste. The ridge was like a vast monumental presence, seldom seen, always sensed, and a few times brought the whale's attention very positively. From that wall one day came a living voice. A great, pulsing, trumping voice, obviously from a creature with massive strength. And whereas the humpback's song had sounded as if it were raised for the singer's own satisfaction, the mountain voice was more clearly a call. Or at least an announcement. I am here, a great blue whale, a male, who is solitary and lonely. And again, I don't think that this is a lot of anthropomorphizing. That is surely the basics of what such a call would mean. Even to human ears, when that voice is recorded, it seemed to be an appeal. To the whale's mother, who recognized it as a whale of her own species, it apparently had additional meaning. As if stirred by it, she made a few quick tail splashes and speeded her swimming pace. She didn't turn toward the voice, nor answer it, because active courtship would not be an interest in blue whales now in August. Except in the spring, the sexual urges of any blue male are quiescent, and the female would not be tempted until after her young one was weaned. But loneliness knows no season, and for these whales who form lasting pair bonds, that kind of companionship could be a real need at any time. And so the mother, alone as the male sounded, seemed to find the voice of a male sympathetically moving. And you can see, woven throughout there are observations about life in general, and emotions in general. That's one of the reasons that you go back to Sally Carrigar, is that she is not just reporting facts. She is a marvelously atmospheric writer. The fidelity of those emotions written on the page are evidence both of the extensive writing training that she had in the real world, and also the extensive emotional training that she had in a life that was not at all easy, which you can easily know if you pull down your 600-page biography of, oh, wait, same old story. No one reads Sally Carrigar anymore. No one researches her anymore. There are no biographies of her. There never will be. She led a fascinating life. I know, I say that all the time. As 2025 comes up on its, fourth biography of General Patton? But still, this was a treat. It's distinctly enjoyable to do. I believe this now completes Sally Carrigar for me. I think I've now read everything she's written, and I will certainly be reading this again. This was fewer than 150 pages, so definitely counts for Shorty September. And there you go. That is the most that I can do. That is a reading roundup and general bookish conversation for today. I will have to hope for more availability tomorrow. I will hope for that, and you'll be the first to know. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.